And he said, your staff stole the phone. And I said, my staff did not steal the phone. I said, it was a prostitute. And he goes, get the police. And I'm like, you can't afford to pay an extra 25 cents. Yeah, I'm on a budget. Can you do me a favor and just give me that 25 cents off? And these people, they spend thousands of dollars flying all the way to Cambodia, and they can't afford to pay an extra 25 cents for a bed.
What's the story, everybody? Pete here from Thairish Times. Happy New Year. Wishing you all the best in 2025. So today is part 2 with a Scottish man living in Cambodia. His name is Richard. And in this video, he's going to talk about purchasing a hostel in Cambodia where he ran into major problems. He's going to talk about arguments with customers, dealing with staff. He's going to talk about cheap backpackers who are arguing over pennies, con men with sob stories, customers sneaking prostitutes into the dorm rooms, and then drinking too much. In part 1, Richard said that at various points during his travels, he was a borderline alcoholic, and he's going to talk about that as well in the video. And he's going to talk about then, what was the outcome of all of this, running a business in Cambodia, what's it all about, and then what was the outcome of it all. So without further ado, let's get straight into it. Hope you enjoyed the video, folks. Leave me a comment down below if you did enjoy it. Cheers.
This is the worst experience of my life, and I'm going to present it to you for your enjoyment.
I'm ready. Okay, so how did this come about?
So what happened was, and I need to give a little bit of a backstory so you fully understand exactly what I bought into. In 2013, so the Hostel franchise, you've got the Hostel and you've got the Riverside Guest House. They're a franchise. In 2013, a guy called Harry from Australia, mid-40s, he came over to Cambodia. He started in Siem Reap and he moved down to Phnom Penh, and he started speaking to the owners. He was staying in the guest house property, and he said, wow, your job's amazing. You welcome customers to Cambodia. You get to drink with them at nighttime. And he said, it must be an amazing lifestyle. And one of them said, do you want to buy into the hostel property? And he said, what do you mean? And he said, well, we're looking for somebody to buy into it because they were running 3 properties. Sorry, I forgot to mention this. There's a property up in Siem Reap, just newly opened. One of them went up there. Then you've got one guy in Phnom Penh running 2 properties. So they said to him, do you want to buy this hostel property? And he's not buying 50% of the franchise. He's buying 50% of the hostel. So he would run the hostel. At the end of the month, he would keep 50% of the profits, and the other 2 guys would keep 50%. So this is back in 2013. And I think he spent, it was $20,000 or $25,000 to buy 50% of the hostel company. So he's bought into it. And I used to go into the hostel all the time. I would go in every Sunday to watch my UFC. I love UFC. And I would go in a few times during the week to drink beers. And of course, I've met Harry, and he's an amazing guy. He's very funny. So we've started drinking together. So we developed a very close friendship. Fast forward to 2016. So I went in, it was August 2016, about halfway through the month, and I've started speaking to Harry. And Harry told me the 2 owners that owned the franchise, they wanted to divorce themselves completely from the hostel property. So they owned 50% and Harry owned 50%. They were looking for somebody to buy the 50% of the hostel and run it with Harry. So Harry's told me this, and he's very nervous because he's not in control over who buys the 50%. Initially, Harry was going to buy it, but he didn't have any savings. He spent all his savings buying the 50%. So the 2 owners, they're looking for some random person to buy 50% of the hostel, and the price was only $16,000, which is incredibly low. So Harry's saying to me, oh, I don't know who they're going to get. It might be a serial killer. It might be some drug addict. And I'm speaking away to Harry, and he just looked at me and he said, do you want to buy it? And I said, me? And I just burst out laughing because I had never ran a hostel before. I don't have a clue how a hostel works. I worked in the bar, but there's a massive difference between working in a bar and operating and managing a hostel. And I just said to him, I don't think I can do it. And he said, it's going to be simple. I'll run the back end of the business. You run the bar. And at the end of the month, we share the profits 50-50. And I've just said to him, I said, I'm really not interested because it seemed like such a complex venture. And knowing me, I would find a way to mess it up. And I just said, I'm not interested. I said, sorry. And I went home and all I could think about was buying this bloody hostel. That's all I could think about was, wow, imagine owning a hostel in Phnom Penh, Cambodia. How cool is that? It was like a rock star's dream. And I've
And
just
did you have
started
the
thinking,
cash at the time?
I had enough cash. I had enough, and slightly more. I could certainly afford it. But what scared me was if I invested $16,000 and it didn't work out, that $16,000 is gone. So I phoned up Harry and I said to him, I said, I'm not saying yes, I'm not saying no. What I'm saying is, I'll come in tomorrow. I said, show me the books. I said, I want to see numbers. I want to see what's your overheads per month, and I want to see how much you make personally per month. So I've went in, we're sitting down, we're drinking cups of tea, and Harry comes out with a folder like that. And he starts going through it. So first thing I said to him, I said, what are the overheads? Every single month, the overheads are between $3,600 and $4,000 per month. The rent alone is $1,800. It's a great big building. It was a 4-story building. And I looked at that number and I've just crapped myself. I was like, how on earth can you make $3,500 to $4,000 per month to pay this? And he said, the rooms alone pay for the overheads. He said, what we need is profit. We need the bar to start generating lots of money. We need to sell drinks. We need to sell cheese toasties. We need to sell food. And he said, that's where you come in. And I said, okay, what are your profits per month? I said, I want to know the profits. As you know, high season, low season in Southeast Asia. High season, more customers, low season, less customers. So Harry's told me in low season, he makes $200 a month. And I've just burst out laughing. I said, so you're wanting me to invest $16,000 and get $200 per month? I said, no way. I said, no way. He said, wait till you hear the numbers in high season. He said, in high season, you can make between $600 to $800 a month. Now that appealed to me. Plus, I'd be getting free beer and free food. And I've
But
just
even
said to
still,
Harry,
$600 to $800 per season or per month.
per month, and that's per
Uh,
person. That's per person. That's not shared. That's per person.
And so how long is high season? Is what, 4 months?
Yeah, it's about 4 months. So you're weighing up the highs with the low. But what Harry
You
said to
probably look
me,
to break even in about 3 years then.
exactly. And what Harry said to me was, he said, it's about the lifestyle. He said, I do this for the lifestyle. He'd been doing it for 3 years. He said, your mates are going to come by. You'll get to drink with them every night. You'll have an amazing time. And he said, you'll never have to buy a beer again. And I said to him, let me go home. I need to think about this. So I
Oh, you
went home.
appeal to the drinker in you.
Exactly. That's what people always do. And I've went home and I've started thinking about it. I've really started thinking about it. And I thought, I can afford the price tag, free beers, an amazing lifestyle. And what convinced me was I have met so many people who told me stories about having the opportunity to buy a hostel, having the chance to buy a bar. And they all said the same thing. I had the chance to do it, but I backed out. So I didn't do it and I regretted it. And I've just thought to myself, I don't want to live in regret. It's only $16,000. It would be such an amazing opportunity. And I can make it work. I could maybe make it work. And maybe in 5 years, we could have the biggest hostel in all of Phnom Penh. It's going to be a success story. Then we can sell it for like treble the price and I'll make my money back. And I've just said to myself, I don't want to live in regret. And I didn't want to be an English teacher at that point. And I just said, the hell with it. I'm going to buy into this hostel. And that began my crazy journey of owning a hostel.
Okay, so there's a number of stories around this hostel that you sent
Mm.
me, and let me just pick one. Well, we'll get into a lot of them.
If you don't mind, Pete, do you mind if I explain the process of buying the hostel? Because then it pays off later on.
Yeah, yeah, go
It,
ahead. Yeah,
it,
no problem.
it,
Yeah, go
it,
ahead.
it'll take literally 60 seconds. It's just important information, and I
I
don't
like
want
the
to
way you
confuse
give
the
a lot of
listeners.
detail. I like that. Come on, give
Okay,
us all the detail. We love
I
it.
think I'm speaking too much. I
No,
think
you're
I'm
go
speaking
go
too
for it, man. It's
much.
gonna be a long one anyway. It's gonna be a long one because you can't cut. I can tell you can't leave parts out with this story. So
I'm sure you'll find ways to cut out some of my garbage. But anyway.
we'll see. We'll see. You won't know until the end.
Okay, so to buy the hostel, we needed two pieces of paperwork number one is the lease agreement. So the building was owned by a local policeman, Khmer policeman. He owned the building. So we had to sign a new lease agreement with him that stipulated the rent was $1,800 per month and it wouldn't shift until 3 weeks' time. So it was secure, 3 months' time. It was $1,800 for 3 years. So he signed that. Next piece of paperwork is the business deeds. And what that piece of paperwork stipulated was Harry and I were buying the business from the other two owners. And we signed that. And then I paid the money. I was a bit cheeky with the money. I didn't pay $16,000. I negotiated them down to $14,000. So I paid $14,000 and then I've spent maybe $1,000 doing the place up. We had to update the kitchen. We needed new menus and I bought a foosball tournament, which helped draw in customers.
Okay, what I do want to get into though is the stories around the hostel, because I can just imagine the kind of characters that you've seen.
Yeah.
You said in the email to me you had arguments with customers.
Yeah. At least.
There was prostitutes in the dorm rooms, cheap backpackers arguing over pennies. So let's start with you mentioned there building repairs, was it?
Yeah, it was just, there was so many problems that encountered that I never anticipated. So when I bought into the hostel, I thought things would go smoothly. And I thought the only thing we had to deal with was maybe customers complaining about random things. But all these problems started to come up and they just came out of nowhere. And every single day, it was a constant battle with repairs, arguing with customers, dealing with your staff. The first major problem, and this had financial implications, was building repairs. There was one day, it was maybe a month into owning the hostel, there's a rainstorm outside. All of a sudden, a customer comes downstairs and she said, "My room's flooded." And I said, "What do you mean?" And she said, "The entire hallway in the second floor is flooded." So I went running upstairs. It's like a paddling pool with that much water pissing into everyone's rooms. And I'm like, oh my God, the roof on top of the building had become damaged and the water ran down the wall. It went all the way to the second floor and just completely flooded it. Now, luckily, nobody put their laptops on the floor. There was no damage to any customers' belongings, but we had to sweep up all the water. We had to get rid of it in the shower. Then we had to pay $30 to get the roof repaired. Then our fridge broke down. So we've got a fridge in the kitchen. The fridge was like maybe 4 years old. One day we come in, the fridge is broken. We'll open the door, $50 worth of food down the pan. Cheese, bacon, processed meats, perished overnight. So we're like, oh, for goodness sake. So we chucked out the old fridge, chucked out all this food. We bought it wasn't a new fridge, it was a second-hand fridge, but it was sold as new. We spent $80 on the fridge. The guy comes in with the fridge, he plugs it in. Perfect, it's working. We bought all the food. We bought cheese, we bought bacon, processed meats. We put it in. We came in the next day. That bloody fridge had broken down. So we had to get another fridge in. So all that food, once again, we've had to chuck it out. This is money coming out of our pockets. So the guy comes in with the new fridge. And I said, "You sold us a fridge that didn't work." And he said, "Well, it was working when I plugged it in." And I said, "But it's broken now." "Oh, that's nothing to do with me." And I said, "What about the food?" I said, "There was like a big block of cheese." And he said, "Not my problem." So he just walked away and it was just nuts. Then one day, we had a customer crapped himself, soiled a mattress. So the guy's checked out. He's checked out the room. The cleaners went in 10 minutes later. The guy's made a quick getaway, jumped on a bus away up to Siem Reap. The cleaners went in the room, seen this horrific mess of the mattress, completely caked in unspeakable matter. And she comes running out. She told me and Harry, we went in the room, the smell. I've never smelled anything like it. So I'm like, oh, for God's sake. So I said to the staff, I said, "Take this mattress." I said, "Throw it out immediately." I said, "Throw it out in the skip over there." I said, "Get it away from the building. We can't have any customers smelling this." Me and Harry go out. We spend $35 on a mattress. We come back. The cleaner's got this shitty mattress up against the wall in the bar area. There's people eating their food and she's scrubbing it. She's cleaning it. And we're like, what are you doing? There's people eating food. And she said, "I take mattress home with me. I want to clean it first." And we've said to her, "Throw the mattress out. There's people eating." And she said, "I can't put it in the street. Somebody will steal it." And we're trying to say to her, "It's covered in shit. Who's going to steal it? So we've had to throw the mattress out. Just insane stuff like that happened on a regular basis. And anytime there's a repair, it's got to come out of your pockets. And it just became a nightmare. We had a great big tree outside the front of the hostel. It was like the same size as the building. It's a 4-story building. The branches are grown out in all directions. So we had to trim the tree, and we got quoted $120 to trim the tree. And me and Harry, we're like, bugger that. We're not paying $120. So we waited until it got dark, and you've just got to climb up a tree, saw down the branches, and then a bunch of backpackers, they helped us cut down the tree, which saved money. But it's just a constant battle with the elements.
Well, I can imagine in the tropics, yeah, it's the buildings deteriorate a lot faster. What about the prostitution? I mean, it's Cambodia, it's Phnom Penh, and there's a sex industry there. It's everyone
Yeah,
knows that there is. Were people bringing prostitutes into the hostel?
this happened a lot. Now, our main rule, there's some hostels, there's some guest houses that allow this, but we don't allow outside guests. This is what you say to people: no outside guests. What that means is no prostitutes, no ladyboys, no streetwalkers. And the reason for this is very simple. If an argument kicks off, for example, it's the hostel owners, it's management that's got to deal with the problem. So if there's a big barney between a customer and a prostitute, everyone sees it. People stay and see it. People coming into the hostel to check in see it. And it can just cause an ugly situation. So we simply didn't allow it. But people would constantly try. They always tried to sneak prostitutes into their room. One time, a guy came back with a prostitute. This is not the funny story. This is another story. Comes back with a prostitute. He went out to get food, and he comes back with this Khmer woman. She's very attractive, and they've come up to the counter. And I said to him, "There's no women allowed up in the rooms." And he said, "It's okay. She's coming upstairs to look at a book." And I said, "A book?" And he said, "Yeah, I met this woman on the riverside, and I told her all about this book, and she wants to read the book. So I'm taking her upstairs to look at the book." And I'm looking at the guy like, "Do you think I'm Forrest Gump? Like a book?" And I said, "What to do is," I said, "you go upstairs." I said, "Get your book, take it downstairs, and she can read it down here." "Oh, come on, mate. Don't be like that. It's just a book." And I said, "Go and get your book." And he's ended up storming away. But the one story I'll tell you, this was quite a serious incident. Sorry, I'm going to preemptively stop my stuttering.
You're building up suspense now.
I really hope the story delivers. So we had a German guy stayed with us for about a month. His name was Klaus or something. We'll just call him Klaus for argument's sake. He was in his 60s. I didn't like him. I thought he was arrogant. He was obnoxious. But he was a big spender. This was in low season. In low season, you're making less money. So you've got to be more tolerant of certain individuals. So he's checked in every day, spending $30 on booze. So, there's a little bit of leeway there. But every single day without fail, he said, "Can I take a prostitute to my room? Can I take this streetwalker to my room?" And every single time we've told him, "No, you're not allowed." "Oh, but I buy lots of drinks. Please let me." And we've just said, "No, you can't do it." 2 weeks into stay, he comes downstairs, must be about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, because he was a late riser, because he's always out till 2 o'clock in the morning. So he wakes up at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. He comes downstairs. He said, "My phone's missing." And we're like, "Your phone?" And we said, "Did you take it out with you last night?" He said, "No, it got stolen from my room." And we're like, "Oh, for God's sake." He was staying in a room with no windows. It's what we call a box room. There's a single bed and a fan, and that's it. And you pay like $10 a day for that room. So his phone's gone. And he said he came home last night, he put his phone in the pillow, he locked the door. When he woke up in the morning, the phone was gone, the door was locked. And me and Harry's looking at each other like, how on earth can that happen? There's only 2 copies of the keys. The customer's got a copy, and there's a copy in a lockbox behind the bar for emergencies. And we're looking at each other. We're like, how did this happen? This is impossible. How can somebody get into the room, steal the phone, and then lock the door? But this is what Klaus is telling us. And then he announces to everyone in the bar, "Your staff stole the phone." And we're like, whoa, 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 let's not make any accusations. You don't know this happened. And he said, "Your staff must have stole the phone." He said, "It's the only way that somebody got on the phone. Somebody got the key, they opened the door, they went in, your staff stole the phone." And we've said to him, let us deal with it. I said, let me speak to the staff. I'll speak to people, but you can't make accusations like that to the staff. So he's went back to the room. You better get this sorted, he screamed at us. So me and Harry are speaking to the staff and we said, has anyone seen this guy's phone? Did anyone see anything? We didn't make any accusations. And they've all shook their heads. We didn't see anything. And me and Harry's like, literally like this, like, how on earth did somebody get into the room? The nighttime security guard came in for lunch. We always gave them food every day. So the nighttime security guard, they work from 11 o'clock at night till 8 o'clock in the morning. And it's their job to open the gate. It's like a big gate for the property. So at nighttime when the bar shuts, you close the gate and you lock the door. People come in after 12, they ring the buzzer, the nighttime security guard lets them in. So he's told us a very interesting story. Klaus came home last night at 2 o'clock in the morning with a prostitute. And the nighttime security guard said to him, I'm sorry, no guests allowed. And Klaus has pulled out $10 and bribed the guy. The prostitute came to Klaus's room, yada, yada, yada. Then the prostitute left. So this is Klaus's story. He took a prostitute back to his room, done the business with her, she left, then his phone got stolen. Absolute BS. We all know what happened. The prostitute stole the phone. So Klaus came to the bar about an hour later, and I'm speaking to him, and he said, did you find out what happened to my phone? And I went, yeah. And he went, well, who stole my phone? And I said to him, did you take a prostitute back to your room last night? And he didn't deny it. He went, yeah, so? And I said, well, I think I know what happened to your phone. And he said, that woman was an angel. She wouldn't do that to me. And I said to him, so your story is you took a prostitute back to your room you'd never met before. She came back to your room. You done the business with her. She left. You left your phone in the pillow. You locked the door. Then in the morning, the phone was gone. I said, that's your story. And he said, your staff stole the phone. And I said, my staff did not steal the phone. I said, it was a prostitute. So we're going back and forth. And he goes, get the police. And I said, you want the police to come? He said, get the police right now. And I said, I'll phone up the police. And I said, but when the police come, you tell them all about the prostitute, because if you don't, I will. And he's just backed down immediately. And I've let him stay. I should have thrown him out because he made accusations against my staff. But it's low season. He's spending $30 a day on booze. My moral compass got compromised. So I allowed him to stay. A week later, he's up at the bar. He's telling the story, but he leaves out the whole bit with the prostitute. He's saying, oh, the staff stole my phone. The manager didn't do anything. At that point, I just went up and I said, you out. And I just chucked him out. But that's what happens. That's why you can't allow these freelance workers, these prostitutes into rooms, because you don't know what's going to happen. It's just chaos.
What's the story about the drunken, disorderly Thai woman and French man?
I thought that might pique your interest. I was away to tell that story next. So obviously running the bar, you've got to deal with customers. You've got to deal with people's drunken antics. Occasionally, guys get drunk and they get a little bit verbally aggressive. You've got to ask them to leave, but there was never any physical altercations or anything. I think I was quite lucky. I can be quite assertive when I want to, and I've got like a mean face when I scrunch it up. So people leave, you ask them to leave and they leave. This one day, a French guy checks in and he's with his Thai wife. So they both check in. It's 1 o'clock in the afternoon. The French guy sober, his Thai wife is absolutely smashed. She is obliterated on alcohol. And she comes up to the counter. He's checking in. So Harry's checking her in. And I'm dealing with this Thai woman. She's dancing. Turn the music up. Turn the music up. And she's being vulgar. She's slamming beers. And I'm looking at Harry. I'm like, check him in so she can go upstairs. And she's harassing the customers. I had regulars that came in. Older guys in their 60s. They like peace and quiet. And this woman's came in a hot mess, partying like it's 1999. So the French guy goes upstairs and he leaves his Thai wife downstairs. And I'm like, oh, for goodness sake. So she's getting drunker. She's being vulgar. She's dancing about. Turn the music up. And I'm looking at Harry. I'm like, we need to get her upstairs. So I'm saying to her, I'm like, go upstairs. No, turn the music up. Get upstairs now. No, turn the music up. And what can we do? What can we do? We didn't know what to do. So I said,
turn the music up.
No. You turn it up and you give in. Next thing you know, I don't know what she would demand next. But I just said, I'm not dealing with this. I said, the husband's dealing with it. I said, it's not our problem. So I went upstairs. This was an hour after the guy went upstairs and I'm banging on the guy's door. And the guy's opened up. He's just woken up, all sleepy, hair sticking up in his underwear. And I said, sir, your wife's downstairs. And I said, she's absolutely wasted and she's annoying customers. And he said, what do you want me to do? And I said, well, it's your wife. I said, can you come downstairs, get her, take her upstairs because she's harassing people? And he said, no, no, no. He said, that's your job. And he said, I come here to sleep. He said, it's your job to look after my wife. And I just said to him, I said, we don't advertise a babysitting services. I said, if you don't come downstairs right now and control your wife, I said, both of you can get out. And he's taken the latter option because he couldn't control his wife. He wasn't man enough to control his wife. So he's had to check out with his wife. We gave him a full refund. But stuff like that's annoying, like dealing with drunken customers.
What about the backpackers and them arguing over, $1 or $2 trying to get a discount?
Yeah, so this was something that started to really annoy me. And when I first bought the business, we're coming into high season, so we start making good money. In dealing with frugal backpackers, it wasn't an issue because in high season, people pay full price. You never negotiate in high season. If you don't want the bed for $5, somebody else will take it 5 minutes later. And that's the mentality. But in low season, there's less customers, so you've got to lower your prices by 30%. So the dorm bed at $5 becomes $3.50, so you can compete. The room at $10 becomes $8, so you can get the customers. So our dorms, they're clean, they're safe, they're tidy, they're well maintained. $3.50 is incredibly cheap. But you have these backpackers coming in and they don't want to pay $3.50. They want to pay $1.75. And it's just like, what planet are you living on? And I've stood and negotiated and argued with these people for like 20 minutes over like 25 cents. Like, oh, I can't afford to pay $3.50. Can I get the dorm bed for $3.25? And I'm like, you can't afford to pay an extra 25 cents. Yeah, I'm on a budget. Can you do me a favor and just give me that 25 cents off? And these people, they spend thousands of dollars flying all the way to Cambodia and they can't afford to pay an extra 25 cents for a bed. And you're negotiating with them, you're trying to argue, and it just became really contentious. Then they want stuff for free. So the check-in, they eventually pay the $3.50. Can I get a free beer on check-in? Like, what am I giving you a beer for? What have you done that deserves a beer? It's like, if you want a beer, you pay $1. Oh, I stayed in a place down in Sihanoukville. They gave them a free beer. Like, that's Sihanoukville. This is Phnom Penh. Then they want free breakfast. They're paying $3.50 for a bed. Oh, does it come with free breakfast? Like, what do you think? Do you honestly think we're going to allow you to pay $3.50? We give you a free beer on check-in, and then you're getting free breakfast. It's just insanity. And it just became so annoying dealing with these people every day. And
was there any particular nationality?
All nationalities. I started calling these people, some people call them bagpackers. I call them cabs, cheap ass backpacker. And I hated them. I don't mind backpackers. I hate cabs, cheap ass backpackers. So one day this guy checked in. I'll start rattling off a few semi-humorous stories. This guy checked in upstairs to the dorm. He came down 10 minutes later. He looked like his cat died. He was in deep shock. And I said to him, are you okay? And he said, there's no TV in the dorm. And I said, what do you mean? He said, there's no television up there. What am I supposed to do all day? And I said, you've came to Cambodia to watch TV? And he's like, oh, I need to watch the news. So I've just said to him, just come downstairs and watch the news. But he wanted a TV in the dorm. And another time, we had this group of Indians. They checked in. They were staying in a double room. There was 4 of them. They stayed for a month. They just kept to themselves, never spoke to anyone. They bought food from outside and took it inside. And we never spoke to them. One day, they came downstairs. I'm behind the bar like this, cleaning a that. You know what's coming? It's water time.
Right, you're cleaning a glass.
Yeah, I'm not starting this bloody story again. We're just going with it.
We're keeping it going. We're keeping it going.
Yeah, so I'm cleaning the glass, and this Indian guy came downstairs. We've got a kettle behind the bar for making teas and coffee. So I'm cleaning the glass, and this Indian guy comes downstairs, unplugged the kettle, picked it up, and started walking away with it. And I'm like, what the hell are you doing? And he said, I need upstairs. And I said, that's my kettle for the bar. Oh, but I need upstairs. And I said, if you want hot water, come downstairs and I'll heat your water. And he said, but there's no customers here. And I said, but what happens if a customer comes later? Oh, you can come upstairs and borrow the kettle. And I said, borrow the kettle. It's my kettle. Put it back. And it's just insane stuff like that happens every day. Sorry, I'm just looking at my notes. So I'll tell you this one funny story. This is where I shut down a backpacker. And it's one of my crowning glories when I worked as a hostel manager. This guy comes in, it's high season, place is almost full. There's one dorm bed upstairs, everything else is taken. One dorm bed, $5, 9 o'clock. This cheap ass backpacker comes in. Have you got any dorm beds? I'm like, yeah, $5. He goes, I'll give you $3.75. It's $5, mate. I'll give you $4. It's $5, mate. Everyone's watching. The bar's packed. This guy's got no dignity. I'll give you $4.25. It's $5, mate. I'll give you $4.75. I'm like, it's $5. And he says to me, why can't you just give me the bed for $4.75? And I said, why can't you just pay $5? I said, the price is $5. I said, if you don't want it, somebody else will come in 10 minutes and take it. And he said, right, what I'll do is I'll walk up and down the riverside and I'll try and find cheaper accommodation. And I said, good luck. And he said, can you hold the bed for me? And I said, absolutely not. I'm not holding the bed. If you want the bed, you pay me $5. And he said, nobody's going to take the bed. I don't see what the big deal is. So he stormed away in a huff. 10 minutes later, another backpacker comes in. Do you have a dorm bed? I'm like, yeah, $5. Paid instantaneously. And we've got a full house. And it's an amazing feeling when you've got a full house because you've done your job and you know that you're making the maximum amount of money because all the rooms are taken. Everyone's down in the bar. Money's been pumped into the till. 10 minutes later, the other backpacker comes in, the cheap ass backpacker. He comes in and he's all flustered. He couldn't find any rooms. Nothing's available. And he said, I'll take that bed for $5. And I said, the bed's gone. And he went, what do you mean? And I said, somebody else took your bed. You gave my bed to somebody else? And I said, it wasn't your bed to start with. I offered you the bed. You didn't take it. And now the guy's got nowhere to sleep. But he said, where am I supposed to sleep tonight? And we've got a couch in the bar area. I said, you can sleep there for $2.
So and did he sleep there?
Yeah, for $2.
Oh my God. I mean, it's over 25 cents. Like what?
I know, it's just ridiculous. So I've got a few more stories before we move on. So sometimes guests, they don't want to give you money. What they want to do is they want to barter, but they're not bartering with currency. They'll offer you some sort of crazy service that they'll give to you instead of paying money to stay in the dorm. One day, this guy comes downstairs. He says, can I sleep in the dorm one more week? He stayed the week before, $35, which is 7 days, paid full price. He wants to stay one more week. So I said to him, right, it's $35. Do you want to pay now? And he said, I don't have any money. And I said, well, you've got to give me money. You can't stay for free. And he said, how about if I offer you a service instead? And anytime a backpacker says that, I love to listen to them because you know it's going to be a crazy story. So I said to them, tell me what you're going to offer me. He said, what I'm going to do is I won't pay you money. I'll mop the dorm every day so your cleaner doesn't have to come upstairs. And I said, mate, our cleaner does that anyway. So how does you doing it benefit me? I'll clean the toilets as well. I said, no. I said, you've got to pay me money. And he said, what can I do? What can I give you to stay here for a week? And I've said, money. Give me fucking money. All you've got to do is pay money. And then later on, the guy's drinking every night. These people, they haggle, they negotiate, the barter over beds, but they've always got money to party. They've always got money for beers. They've always got money for vodka and cokes. But when it comes to pay for the room, they're skint. They're completely skint. So we'll wrap this up. Sorry, one more story. Some guy comes in one day. I met him the year before. He came to the hostel. This is before I bought the hostel. I met him. Seemed like a nice guy. He comes in a year later when I'm the manager. And me and Harry's up at the counter. We're speaking away. And the guy walks in. He's got like a great big head of hair, Robinson Crusoe style beard. He looked homeless and he smelled the same way. And he comes up to the counter. We're speaking away to him. Hey, how you doing? Oh, I'm terrible, mate. I'm terrible. I got mugged 2 weeks ago. Immediately, I'm like this. You know what's coming. You know what's coming.
Oh, yeah.
I got mugged 2 weeks ago. All my credit cards stolen. I'm checking my way through the list. Credit card stolen, mugged. And he's working his way through. I haven't eaten for 2 weeks. I haven't had a bed to sleep in. I haven't drank any water. I felt a little bit sorry for the guy. I thought maybe he did get mugged. So I've opened the fridge and I've grabbed a bottle of water to give to him. He went, no, can I get a beer? So that's his story. Homeless for 2 weeks, hadn't eaten for 2 weeks, all his credit cards stolen, and his number one priority was to drink a beer.
Yeah, get out of here. See, yeah, you must have met like con men and stuff like that. Like, you know, just chancers. We call them over here in Ireland chancers, and they'll just chance their arm.
Yeah, I think I've got my head screwed on, and I can spot a lot of these people coming from a mile off. And I never allow these people near the business because it's bad for business. If these people come in, you see them operate. They will circle the tables. They'll look for a couple. They'll sit down. Hey, how you doing? Where are you from? Sweden? Oh, I've been to Sweden. And then they'll say, oh, I've lost my wallet. Can you buy my beer? I'll pay you back tomorrow. And then they've got a free beer. And they just harass your business and they're not contributing towards the business. And it becomes annoying for us and it's annoying for the customers.
Let's move on, right?
Yeah, let's move on. How many days has this interview lasted so far?
Well, we'll keep it going, right? So the business eventually was doing badly, and there was a scramble to kind of get rid of it or sell it. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah. So what happened was the best thing about owning a hostel is you get free beer. The worst thing about owning the hostel is the free beer. My downfall was inevitable. It was predictable. It was cliche. I started drinking far too much. In high season, I was very well disciplined. I only got drunk 2 times a week, Friday and Saturday nights. We've got customers, money coming in, everyone's happy, and I felt happy. The business was successful. Then low season came along. Low season came along about February. So you go from being 100% full down to like 60% full. You go from making $600 a month down to $120 a month. And I couldn't deal with, I couldn't handle dealing with all the customers, dealing with all the crap, dealing with the frugal backpackers, dealing with the building repairs. It became too stressful. And I started to resent the business. I started to resent the customers. And I've just started drinking too much. What started as 2 days a week turned into 3 days a week. Then it was 4. Then it was 5. And I would go on these great big long drinking spells, drinking like 7 days in a row, not getting merry, not getting tipsy, getting absolutely obliterated. I'd wake up at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, hungover. I'd go into work an hour later. I'd do exactly 17 minutes of work. I'd open the check-in book. There'd be like 40% people staying. I knew it was going to be a bad month. I look over, there's a beer tap. I've just started drinking straight away, drinking to like 1, 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. Then I've went to bed and I've woken up and it's just the same thing over and over. So the end of February, the start of March, I've just fully lost control. I've lost control of my drinking. And I didn't care about anything. I didn't care about anything. I didn't care about the business. I didn't care about the customers. I didn't care about my business partner, Harry. I didn't care about my health. I didn't care about my liver. All I cared about was drinking. And there's one thing I need to make clear so everyone understands. While I was caught in this whirlwind of self-destruction, getting drunk every night, Harry was doing all the work. I was incapable of working. So I was either hungover, sleeping, or I was drinking. He was doing like 95% of the work. And he kept the place going. If it wasn't for him, the place would have shut down months before we sold it. And he was the hero. He kept the place going. But obviously, there's been a little bit of tension between us. Never huge arguments, but there was just a little bit of tension. And it was just bubbling below the surface, waiting to explode.
So what was the moment of clarity then?
So I had basically been on a 2-week drinking binge. I was drinking nonstop. Might have been longer, might have been shorter, but I couldn't remember. It was the 1st of April. I woke up face down in a girly bar. Couldn't remember how I got there. It was one of those 24-hour girly bars. 6 o'clock in the morning, face down on a couch in the middle of a girly bar. And I've woken up, didn't have a clue where I was, what time I got there, what time I fell asleep. All I knew was I was still half drunk. So I've got up. I've started walking back to my apartment. I've went into my hostel. The hostel's open. I've started drinking a few beers. The staff were looking at me. They were ashamed of me because it was 6:30 in the morning and I was wasted drunk. And they just said to me, you need to go home. You need to go home and sleep. So I went home and I slept, and I woke up and I had the worst hangover I've ever had in my life. And I just said to myself, I can't drink anymore. It had been 2 weeks of hard drinking. And I looked in the mirror and I just looked horrendous, bloodshot eyes, yellow tongue. And I just decided I can't drink tonight. If I drink tonight, I would have probably died. And I'm not being melodramatic. I had so much alcohol in my system. So I've stayed home that night. I needed a couple of weeks off, a couple of days off the booze. And that night I couldn't sleep, could not sleep. I had so much alcohol in my system and my heart was pumping, trying to get everything out of my system. Sleeping was not an option. So I've got up and I've just sat in my apartment and I've started to analyze things. Why am I an alcoholic? Because I knew I was an alcoholic. How did I become like this? What had happened? And what I figured out was it was the hostel. It was working at the hostel. It was being the manager of a hostel did not suit my personality. It didn't suit me. And it started to become depressing, dealing with customers, dealing with frugal backpackers, people coming in, not wanting to pay, just all these different problems just added up. And that's what was causing my drink problem. So I decided that night, right, I'm going to sell my 50% of the business. I'm going to tell Harry. And I felt really nervous about telling Harry because he's my mate at this point. Okay, we're having minor arguments, but I didn't want him to be upset that I was essentially backing out the door. So I spoke to him the next day and I just said, mate, I can't do this anymore. I can't run the hostel. It's killing me. I'm drunk all the time. I'm stressed out dealing with customers. I don't want to see the customers. I don't want to see the backpackers. And I can't be in this situation. And he sort of said, do you want to cut down your drinking? Do you want to take a few weeks off? And I said, I've made up my mind. I'm selling 50% of the business. And he's obviously a little bit nervous about that. And he said, maybe take time to think about it. And I've told him I don't need time. I said, I'm going to sell my 50% share to anybody that wants. And he went, okay. A few days later, I've sort of got used to the fact, okay, I'm going to sell. It's going to make me happier. I'll get back my money and I'll never have to think about operating a hostel again. Harry came in and he's basically said, you were right about Efton. And I said, what do you mean I was right? And he said, I've been doing this for 4 years. Because remember, he'd done it 3 years before me. He said, I've done this for 4 years. And he said, I've got no money. I've got nothing saved. And he said, all I do is stress. And he said, let's sell the business together. So we've decided to sell the business together. And that was amazing because trying to sell 50% of the business is difficult, but selling 100% was much easier. So we've had a few arguments how much we're going to sell it for. I want to sell it at $59,000. Harry wanted to sell at $39,000. So we're arguing back and forth, and Harry's gave in. We tried selling at $59,000 for 2 weeks. Nobody bought it. We tried selling $49,000 for no weeks. Nobody bought it. Then eventually I've said to Harry, you know what? You were right. This is a month later. I said, you were right. Let's sell at $39,000. The second we sold at $39,000, people started phoning up. People wanted to come to the business. They wanted to have a look around. So this was in the month of May. People came in and started looking at the business. And you're like this. It's like a roller coaster journey. Somebody comes in to look at the property. You're like, wow, somebody's going to buy. And then they leave and they don't come back. Then a week later, somebody else comes in. They have a look around. They don't come back. And this went on and on all throughout May, up and down, up and down. And the month of May was the worst month I had ever had running the business. We were maybe 40% full and the money was terrible. The money that we were making in the bar, you're talking about $20 a night, $30 a night. There was nothing. So at the end of the month, we've added up all the money. The bill was $3,500. We had $3,100, $400 shortfall. And that killed us. That just killed me emotionally. Wanting to sell the business, not wanting to be there, and we've just lost $400. So then, the start of June, we got contacted by two Norwegians, a brother and sister, and they seemed like window shoppers. I thought they were window shoppers, and they came in 2 times. They're having a look around. And both times I said to Harry, they won't buy. I just thought they're window shoppers. And they came in the 3rd time, and the brother said, I'll never forget this. He said very dramatically, he said, after careful consideration, would like to make you an offer. And I was like, oh my God, they're going to buy it for $39,000. And he said, would like to give you $32,000. And I'm like, son of a gun, because I wanted to sell at 39. So we've renegotiated with them. We went back and forth. We wanted 39, they at 32, and we got them up to $35,000. So we've ended up selling the business for $35,000. And the sale happened at the end of June. The end of June was the last day and we sold the business.
Which year?
2017. So I bought it September 2016, and I sold it June 2017. Sorry, I'm getting my dates mixed up.
No, but I mean,
just under a year.
Yeah, but imagine pre-COVID. I mean, imagine if you had tried to sell it during COVID.
Well, the people that bought it, I'm not going to go into details because it's their story to tell, but they had it during COVID and they had a bad time. He would be a fascinating person to speak to, but they had a bad time.
Well, I mean, if you have his contact, we could get him on. I'd love to hear that story as well.
Yeah, I'll speak to him, absolutely.
So, all right, you sold it. What are you doing now then, Richard? Because you're back in Cambodia, but we were emailing a couple of months ago, and at the time you were back in Scotland.
I was back in Scotland. Well, what happened, I'll go through this very quickly. I taught English in Cambodia for 1 year after I sold the backpackers. Then I went to China for 2 years. I was in China during the pandemic, and I know you're going to ask me what it was like. That's another can of worms I'll open on a separate occasion.
Okay.
China for 2 years, back to Scotland for 1 year. I was in Ecuador, Guatemala. Then I came back to Cambodia in 2012, and I stayed for 1 year.
2012, not 2012.
2022. Sorry, I apologize.
2022.
And then I went back to Scotland for 1 year, and now I'm back to Cambodia now in Siem Reap, and I've stayed here for about 7 months. And to answer your question, I'm not doing anything. I've got a few personal projects I'm trying to pull together to make money, but I'm trying to live as frugally as possible.
Okay. Well, that kind of moves into what you're doing now with the book, because you've written a book. Tell us about the book, the name of the book, and what your book is about.
Okay, so back in 2022, I met up with Harry for the first time in 4 years. And we got together, and anytime me and Harry get together, we're talking about the hostel, we're talking about all the crazy customers, everything that happened. And what Harry said to me was, you should write a book about running the hostel in your whole life in Cambodia. And that sort of planted a seed in my head. And the next day I woke up, I've written down all the crazy stuff that happened in my life. And I spent 1.5 years writing a book, which is called Burning Brain Cells in Cambodia. So that's been out for a couple of months. I've sold maybe like 50 copies, but people that read it do like it. It's a very chaotic book. It's like Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, but based in Cambodia. And it's all about my crazy life in Cambodia, the people I've met, going out drinking, working in film production, working in the hostel. I've told many stories now, but believe me, there's even more stories in the book.
Can people buy the book on Amazon?
People can buy the book on Amazon. It's on Amazon. We can put a link down below.
I'll link it. Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, I've got a digital version and I've got a paperback, and I'd love it if you could check it out and let me know what you think.
Well, thanks for talking. I mean, you made my job a lot easier. You're a great talker, so all the best, man. Best of luck in Cambodia, whatever you're doing.
Sorry, I kept stuttering. It's the
you were fine. You were perfect. You were brilliant. Don't worry about it.
Cheers. I felt like I maybe spoke a bit too much, but
that's what we want.
Recording, yeah? Have we stopped recording?
We're still on. We're still rolling.
Oh, oh my God. Okay, sorry. It's still going on.
We'll wrap it up. So, Richard, thanks very much. All the best. Cheers.
Thank you, and it's been an honor being on your show. I'm a big fan of your channel. You've got one of the best channels on YouTube, and keep up the good work.